Hello again. Welcome to part 2 of the electric kayak motor build. Now as I said in my first video, with this 12-volt blower motor that I have, one of the brushings in the back end of this motor, the braided cable is coming apart for it. So we're going to take that apart and fix it, and I'll update you on what I've got done and how I did it so far. Still got a couple more parts coming in. Right here's the propeller that I've bought for this build. The reason why I picked 2 blades instead of 3 is I did a little bit of research, and they said you actually get a little bit more speed out of a 2 blade if you don't have that big of a motor, which I don't. Still not sure how this thing's going to perform, but anyway, it's getting kind of fun. So anyway, there's 2 bolts that go all the way through this motor, and they're cogged on one side, 10mm nuts on the other. And whenever you take these motors apart, sometimes they stick, and you could tap them a little bit, but don't beat on them because they have magnets attached to the insides of this housing. And they should just come apart. I'm going to go ahead and throw a little bit of oil in these bearings while I've got it apart. Oops. Got to be careful. This thing's got a porcelain sleeve inside that for my soldering pin. Don't want to break that. There we go. And okay, that little spacer sleeve still on there. And the spacer sleeve goes back down where the bearing seats. And then we have our spring that keeps the tension on the motor. Okay. And this, whenever I took it apart last time, was a little bit stiff. You just want to gently rock it out, and whenever you come up with it, if you could see in here, you can see the brushings and the contacts. When you come up, those brushings are going to pop out. So you want to put your finger in here so they don't slam together and chip. There we go. And there is my concern area right there. If you could see, it's pretty thin right there. So we're going to fire up the old soldering pin. I've already got my sponge wet, and I'm just going to gently take these broken wire fibers and slide them down so that they're contacting the other side. That way, whenever I throw that solder in, it'll put those little broken fibers back together. Dampen our tip, or clean our tip there. Pull off a little bit of solder. And guys, if you've never done any of this soldering, it's actually really easy. I mean, I'm no expert at it, but just get you a decent soldering pin. You could also solder with a wood burning pin. Just clean your tip, use some flux core solder, make sure it's electrical grade. And yeah, tip is getting hot. It's just going a little slow for me. There we go. Alright, we've tinned our tip, and I'm going to put it on the opposite side of where I'm going to apply solder, and then I'm going to touch solder to the tip and wire at the same time. There we go. And once you get it hot enough, it'll just seep right in there. It should. I mean, I don't have this thing cranked up real high, so it takes it a minute to get the heat to the wire, but once it does, it takes solder really well. And I should have put my glasses on. Shoot. Sorry guys, I'm at work. I'll edit this out. Shuttle. Hello, shuttle. Hello, shuttle. Alright, we'll stop this video. Yeah, sorry about the break in the video there. I had a phone call. I'm sitting here at work. Anyway, I had to turn my soldering pen up just a little bit. And I got it to take solder. So we've got a nice solid joint back there. It's not going to snap off in the middle of use or anything like that. So I can shut this down. I'm going to throw me a couple of drops of oil, just some light machine oil, into these bearings and on the shafts, since it's a fairly old motor, just so I might be able to get a little bit more life out of it. Okay, now we get the fun part of wrestling these bushings back in here. Oh, let me get my pocket knife out so I could guide them past the bearing. There we go. That other one's still kind of hot from soldering, but you want to be careful you don't get it too hot, because these wires are soldered into the brushing too. You get it too hot and you'll desolder your brushing from your wire there, and then you'll wind up replacing a brushing. So we got that one pushed in. This is always a juggling act to get these back in. You want to hold that one up, take this one and put the spring just barely past the tip of your finger like that, and then you could catch the edge of it with the other brushing and push it back up in there like that. Let's move this stuff out of the way. Alright, we get a start, and then you got to kind of push one of these brushings back gently and get it past the edge of the bearing. Ah, that one popped out. See what I mean about a juggling act with these things? Some of them are a massive headache to get back together, and you just got to spend you a few minutes playing with it till you get it. Maybe that'll work out a little bit better. Maybe not. I wish I had my bench vise right now. Like I said, this is at work. So I don't have all my tools. There we go. Now we're cooking with gas. Now I'm past the bearing. Rotate it in. You can't shove it right now because there's a gap right underneath here. You got to push them brushings back with the point of something tiny to get them back on those copper contacts. You can't force this, because you start pushing on it and you're going to bust something. And I've got it turned wrong. Got kind of excited about getting it put back together and not saying a few curse words that I didn't line my notch from my wires back up. And we'll drop this one on. Now if you look down in there, you see the gap between the magnets. That's where you want to line up the holes where the bolts go through. And there we go. I'll drop that one in. There we go. Alright, I think the patient lived. I'm going to go ahead and drop another drop of oil in each end cap there. Should have pulled that out before. And put me a couple drops up in here. Alright. Now, I've already notched out the end of this pipe to match up with the wire and the mounts for the brushes and all that, so it slips right down in there. And I've cut it off to a length. All I did was set the motor on top and then go like an inch extra for that. It just slips down in there real nice and easy. Gets a good solid grab on it. And then I notched my cap. And I just notched these with a hacksaw and then just snap that off with a pair of needle nose pliers. And now there's the other end where the shaft and everything is going to mount up. So this is going to be sitting back here when it's complete. I also got me a hood shock. I went to a junkyard, told them I wanted one, and they said, well, you know, if you want one, you know, go out there and find it. And I found this, and I figured it'd work perfect. And they just let me have it. So this was free. This was 16 bucks. The motor was free. Yeah, I believe that was $16, and it went ahead and it came with the pin and the lock nut and everything to go with it. So I'm gonna have to thread this shaft, but I'm gonna cut this off and cut the sleeve off back here, and that gives me a seal for my prop shaft. And then I'll be attaching this inside shaft to the front of the motor with some kind of a heavy-duty hydraulic hose, and then attach the prop to the end, and I think we'll be all set after that's sealed up. Anyway, when I make a little bit more progress, I will update you again. Thank you.